Hello and welcome. I'm Andrea Carlisle, Director of Jackrabbit Forensics, and thank you for tuning in to watch our 2020 virtual showcase. While we wish we'd be in the Campanile room on SDSU's campus, we wanted an opportunity to celebrate and share our love for our activity and our art with all of you. Our motto on our team is Speak Your Passion, and you'll see through the students' performances that you're about to watch that they have a passion for what they do, and they truly are able to share their passions with all of you. While not all of the students on our team are on the virtual showcase, it is a sampling of the heart of our team and the ability for these students to share their love for their activity in any place that they might be sheltering in place. Our motto and focus for this year's season was the idea of what happened if we just went for it. In August at our work week, I dared our students to be great. They dared right alongside of me, and they were successful. They were the 2020 champions of the Dakotas. As a team, they placed in the top 3 of team tournaments 15 different times, 34 different individual first place placings, and they qualified 23 events to the American Forensic Association National Individual Events Tournament, next year being called the National Speech Championship. We're so excited for our students to have this opportunity to share their voices and their messages with you. You'll see that the ideas of daring to be great permeate each student who've taken the opportunity out of their now new normal or pandemic lives to share their art with you. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Chef by Jon Favreau is a 2014 cult classic in which a chef, played by Jon Favreau, is fired from his job by a very angry manager. And at the lowest point in his life, Chef, played by Jon Favreau, goes home and dares his family and best friend to be great and join him in a food service operation where he can reclaim his title as chef, played by Jon Favreau. And it's this idea of going around to those around us and working as a team that is reflected in today's quotation. To become truly great, one has to stand with people, not against them, by Montesquieu. We can observe that what Montesquieu is really saying here is that we need to work as a team. And we can agree with this sentiment by observing how unity powers success. And we can further analyze this idea of unity powering success by first observing how teamwork benefits a group as a whole, and secondarily, how working as a team gives you outside perspectives which inherently lead to success. But first, teamwork benefits a group as a whole. And as a result of teamwork benefiting a group and leading a whole group of people to success, we need to work as a team because working together is cool. And we can further examine this idea of teamwork benefiting a group as a whole rather than just an individual by first observing Niels Abel and secondarily the corrupted blood incident. But first, Niels Abel was a mathematician in the 19th century who discovered a disproof for finding that you could not find the roots of a fifth-order polynomial. This was a math problem that mathematicians had been working on for a very long time. However, they had all been working on it in their own isolated way. What Niels Abel did is he took all of their previous work and compiled it together and was able to discover a proof. So through working as a team with past mathematicians, Niels Abel had the conviction to find this disproof. And as a result, he was able to create something that he could be truly proud of. Niels Abel, working together, was able to lay the groundwork of group theory and benefit math as a whole. Secondly, we can observe the corrupted blood incident from World of Warcraft. The corrupted blood incident was when Blizzard introduced a boss to the game, which gave players a disease, and this disease would spread from player to player very quickly if the players didn't practice social distancing. However, this wasn't a problem since players could just stand away from each other in the boss arena. However, when the disease left the arena into the overworld, this became a far bigger problem. Because World of Warcraft players, while they may practice social distancing in real life, they don't in the game. And this allowed for the disease to travel across the continent incredibly fast and hit major population centers. So as a result, players had to find the grit within themselves and grind through the game in order to continually heal each other and keep each other from dying from this disease. This in turn allowed for pandemic research teams to research this as a case study in pandemics. And while it may not have been Blizzard's intention to create a pandemic case study, that's exactly what they did. But through the World of Warcraft players working together, they were able to successfully keep each other alive and benefit the whole player base as a whole, and honestly the whole world, as it became a pandemic response case study. So, through Niels Abel working with past mathematicians and players in World of Warcraft working together through the Corrupted Blood incident, we observe that teamwork benefits a group as a whole. But secondly, we can observe that teamwork can give you outside perspectives, which inherently lead to success. And we can further examine this idea by first examining the Midas formula, and secondly, glass animals. But first, the Midas formula is a formula made by Black-Scholes, which determines the pricing point of options of the stock market. However, mathematicians have been working on this since the stock market came out, and this formula didn't come around until like the early 2000s. However, what ended up happening is Black-Scholes went to an entirely different area of mathematics than previous mathematicians had been looking at. And they worked together with Japanese researchers and physicists and reflected on Ito calculus and applied it to their own formula in order to create the Midas formula. This formula became super consistent on the stock market and made lots of people lots of money. So, through working with other people and getting outside perspectives from different areas of math, they were able to create a phenomenal formula that worked very well. Secondly, we can observe Glass Animals and see that they're an indie rock band out of the UK. And what their first album released to some marginal success, but it wasn't anything to write home about. So rather than immediately churning out a second album, what Glass Animals did is they went on a giant road trip all across the world. And on this road trip, they talked to many different people from the working class. And what they ended up finding and talking about was lots of different people's struggles in everyday life. And as a result, they took all of these stories they heard and put it into the album, which allowed for them to create an incredibly successful album. So through getting the outside perspectives of other people, they were able to create a phenomenal album. So through Black-Scholes getting outside perspective from other areas of math on the Midas formula, and Glass Animals getting outside perspectives from other people in just everyday life for their second album, Life Itself, we observe that getting outside perspectives can inherently lead to success. So, in returning to today's quotation, to become truly great, one has to stand with people, not against them, by Montesquieu. We observed that we need to work as a team because unity powers success. And we further examined this idea by first observing how teamwork benefits a group, and secondly, observing how getting outside perspectives can inherently lead you to success. So just like how Chef, played by Jean Favreau, dared his family to be great and work together with him, we too need to work as a team so that we can also become truly big.
That was Lars Wagner, a second year on our team. And what's really cool about Lars's impromptu is that he incorporated our words of the week. And obviously our team focused this year of daring to be great throughout his impromptu. So really cool to see the love Lars gave to his teammates and our focus for the season. Our next performance is Lauren Visser, who is a third-year team member, and she will be performing her after-dinner speech, and certainly a message that we all can take into our lives right now as we are spending a great amount of time at home, some of us with many loved ones around, and how do we manage that time? So Lauren Visser.
I work at a children's museum, and I love my job. I miss it more than anything in this time. I miss being able to do all those things 20-year-olds don't normally get to do, like have imaginary friends and play pretend. But more than anything, I miss my kiddos and their families. Now, while my kiddos at work love to play, they have it better than most. Stat of March 25th, 2019 claims that America hasn't killed play. Oh no! Was it a murder? Was it Colonel Mustard in the kitchen? Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce you guys. This is Timothy McGulligan. Normally I perform this speech with a sock puppet I made named Archibald Amadeus Cornbury III, but he was on vacation. So we have Timothy, because what 20-year-old doesn't have a bunch of excess puppets lying around? Now, to adults, it may seem useless to let a child's mind wander, to imagine, to play pretend. But as NPR of October 1st, 2019 defines, play is how we learn about rules, how we learn about everything that isn't pure instinct. As neuroscientist Dr. Jack Pansket notes in Brain World Magazine, the most academic of sources, of May 22nd, 2019, play is a primal process that we share with all other social animals. Essentially, he theorizes that there are modern and primitive parts of the brain, and play, specifically free play, helps us figure out how to socialize. Play is absolutely critical for healthy learning, so we must learn to embrace play in our daily lives. Yes, you, the adults. So today, we will first conduct an autopsy and uncover the true causes of play's death. Second, mourn our loss and eulogize the lost benefits of play, before finally, hopefully, finding a way to resurrect play. But until then, sadly, Timothy is dead. Sorry, Timothy. Now, this is normally the time where I would use a fortune teller and some audience interaction to do this really cool transition thing. But since I don't have an audience and I'm standing in the middle of my yard, I thought I would take this time to pitch my children's museum, the Children's Museum of South Dakota. You can check out their website at prairieplay.org and find a lot of ways to enjoy play during this time of social distancing. Now, back to your regularly scheduled speech. In his 2014 TED Talk, Play Expert, now that's a job I want to have someday, Dr. Peter Gray explored the culprits of play's death. Dun dun dun! The overarching cause? A societal shift in attitudes towards children. The New York Times of August 20th, 2019 furthers that we are in a climate where play is not that important. Now, this societal shift can be broken down into two key influences: screen time and adult attitudes. First, screen time feels a lot of the heat when we talk about children needing to play more. The rise of TV and other electronic devices did make the indoor scene a lot more attractive. But as Dr. Pansket notes in the previous Brain World Magazine, while playing video games and structured games in general is technically playing, you really aren't receiving the benefits of free play. Now, while the attractiveness of Fortnite and Minecraft might have changed the way children play to a degree, this is really much more evident of the larger cause at hand: adult attitudes. Dr. Gray initially theorized that sensationalized media led parents to keep a closer watch over their children. However, Dr. Michael Yagelman, chairman in the American Academy of Pediatrics, says it's more than that. He explains that we're in a climate where parents feel the need to structure every minute of a child's free time, and 30% of kindergartens offer no recess. I cannot believe the kids aren't striking yet. I mean, I know I would be without my recess. Essentially, adults are removing the opportunities for kids to be, well, kids. Let me ask you this. Why, when we complained about literally every aspect about being adults, would we force kids to be as close to adults as possible as soon as possible? Hashtag adulting is lame. Thank you guys. I just wanted to thank you all for coming to the funeral of our dear departed friend, Play. Play was preceded in death by Julius Caesar and my will to graduate. The effects of play's demise come in two brand new fruity flavors: pop and pink problem solving and razzle dazzle anxiety. First, as we are removing opportunities for children to experience free play, we are seeing a decrease in problem solving abilities. This is further explained in research in NPR of October 15, 2018. They report on a study that explored the effects of the physical play of lab rats on brain development. This study proved that play, free play, is essential for healthy brain development. Play is a primal process, just like sex drive, aggression, and my desire to eat every single piece of garlic bread I come into contact with. These primal processes need to be experienced in order for a human to know how to, well, human. The New York Times of August 30th, 2019 furthers that as we remove opportunities for children to experience boredom because their lives are so structured, we remove opportunities for children to develop their imaginations. Now, imagination may seem super lame to adults, but that's literally what you use to solve problems, especially those that you have never encountered before. Second, as we are seeing a decrease in play opportunities, we are seeing an increase in anxiety and depression. This is explained by Dr. Gray, who says that as parents continue to levy more and more guidelines onto play for the sake of safety and education, they are unknowingly removing perhaps the most critical type of free play: risky play. No, not that kind. Risky play is essentially play that creates some kind of fear. This could involve heights, like in climbing a tree, or being alone, like in hide and seek. Now, what your body is practicing during risky play is how to control your mind and body in a state of fear. You learn to feel confident in unordinary situations in the real world without panicking. Risky play is essentially practice for dealing with uncertainty, and boy, is there a lot of that in today's world. Think of risky play as training wheels on a bicycle, except we've never had the opportunity to practice riding the bike with the training wheels, and instead have just been launched full speed down the bike path towards a pack of 3 dogs of whom you are very much so afraid, and your dad is standing down the path saying, "Don't worry, Lauren, those dogs won't hurt you," and you're just really freaking out inside. And not that this anecdotal evidence is in any way grounded in reality. What I'm trying to say here is that it's okay if you're scared, confused, and anxious all of the time. We're simply ill-equipped to handle life's ups and downs. It's like we're all stuck on a teeter-totter of despair. So essentially, without play, we're all just doomed to be anxious messes for the rest of our lives. Or are we? In order to resurrect play, I called in an expert. Sadly, Dr. Gray refuses to answer my emails, so I called in the next best thing. This puppet. Lauren, you really left me on the floor like that? I'm hurt. We need you to cast a spell to resurrect play. Can you help us with that? Perfect. To resurrect play, I called in a resident magic expert, a regular at the museum, and for privacy purposes, I'll call her Yolanda. Now, when I asked Yolanda what we could do to resurrect play, she said, and I quote, "Play! We need to play more. Kids, adults, puppets, everyone. Let's look at ways we can bring play back into our lives on 2 levels, institutional and personal. First, on the institutional level, schools need to allow more opportunities for free, unstructured play. Some schools are finally doing this. Desert News, a local Utah news outlet of December 8th, 2019, reported that Utah public schools could begin counting recess as instructional time. This is awesome, and we all need to follow suit and do something I thought I would never say. Be more like Utah. Now, while some schools are making the necessary policy changes, this unfortunately takes time. But what we can change today is our mindset. NBC News of July 7, 2019, recommends incorporating play into regular tasks. You could try doodling while on a conference call or singing in the shower. Now, if you lost the opportunity to truly play as a child, or have fallen into the dreadful trap of adulthood and lost your imagination, worry not. For I have a super cool handout with me today. that shows you ways that you can play in your daily lives, like naming a houseplant or joining a local youth mentor program. Now, while I can't physically hand you this handout today, I can invite you to leave a comment, and if you want access to this handout, I'd be happy to share it with you. Please spread the news that play is important. Maybe even make your own puppet. I get lonely sometimes. So today, we conducted an autopsy and uncovered the true causes of play's death, mourned our loss, and remembered the benefits of play, and finally, successfully resurrected play with the help of Timothy, Yolanda, and hopefully you guys too. Play is a really simple way to increase resiliency against uncertainty. Play might be the only way we can handle the problems of today. So, who wants to set up a Zoom call to play some tic-tac-toe?
And truly, if you are interested in any of Lauren's materials, please do leave a comment or even ask her to schedule a Zoom or another digital meeting to play tic-tac-toe. I know that she'd absolutely love it. Our next performer is a new team member this year. She's a sophomore at South Dakota State University, but was only on a team in the spring semester, and that's Ella Patton. And Ella actually was able to qualify impromptu speaking for our national tournament. You'll notice this evening that there is a theme of impromptus. I think a little bit easy for our students to record and not have to rememorize as we prepare for the virtual showcase, but also an event that we really enjoy as a team. Even if people don't do it, they all learn how to do it and are really awesome at helping each other become better and more thoughtful with their impromptu speaking skills. So please enjoy Ella Patton and her impromptu. And Ella here is actually preparing her speech at the start. Lars and another impromptu speech you'll see later do not. They just start at the start of their speech. So generally in competition, students have 7 minutes total to prepare and deliver a speech. And so that's what Ella is doing right now.
In the Disney movie Mary Poppins, Mary is a nanny who comes to help out a family with 2 kids who are just unsure of where to go in life. Now, in one of the scenes in this movie and this musical, because it is a musical, they discuss about how words have the power to change the situation. In fact, one word in particular, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. If you don't know what to say, you're trying to flirt, or you're just trying to get out of a situation. Apparently that word is the word that can do it all. And this idea of a word solving your problems, or kind of having power, brings us to today's quotation. Speech is power. Speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, what Emerson is trying to say, we can take what Emerson is trying to say here is that words have influence. And we can understand that words have influence through 2 main points of analysis. We can look at how words have influence because of the multiple interpretations of words and of the multifacets of languages. And we can look at how words have influence when we look at how we react to words. When we first look at how words have influence, we can look at it through how words have multiple interpretations. For every word, there is a definition in the dictionary, and for some words, there are multiple definitions in the dictionary. We can understand where these definitions come from when we look at symbolism theory. Symbolism theory, introduced in the 1920s, is the idea that when we look at a symbol or an object or a word, the personal interpretation of it affects how we interact with other people and how we live our lives. When we interpret a word, we have a personal experience and a personal connection of what it means. Chuffed means something different to two different people. Quite in England is not the same thing as quite here. And we can look at how words have different interpretations also when we look at l'Académie Française. L'Académie Française is an institution in France that is in charge of creating a dictionary, of setting a set term for what their words mean and how these words interact with their communities. They give multiple interpretations by talking to the people and the citizens of France and determining what their interpretations and definitions of a word are, and then confirming that in the dictionary. So we can see words have influence when we look at how words have many interpretations and how they affect us on a personal level. We can also see how words have influence when we look at how we react to words. We react through words through those interpretations that we just talked about. We each react to words differently, but also differently personally, but also as a society. Words in society carry ideas. They set out influences. They create forward motion in the marketplace of ideas of the general public. However, we as a society also react to words negatively, which makes them influential. We do this through censorship. Censorship is the attempt of blocking words, whether it's limiting free speech, whether it's banning books, or even burning them, like Nazis did. However, we can look at censorship further when we talk about these banned books. In the United States, there have been hundreds of books banned by schools, by the government, by multiple religious orders because they think they bring about dangerous and changing ideas. Some of the books that have been banned include The Color Purple, Catcher in the Rye, Angela's Ashes. These are all books that use words to encourage new thinking or to attempt to share a story that, through some people's interpretations, could be dangerous and could have negative consequences, but to other people share stories that need to be shared. So, in returning to today's quotation, speech is power, speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel, by Ralph Waldo Emerson, we took it to mean that words have influence. We looked at how words have influence through 2 points of analysis. Words have many interpretations, which we saw in symbolism theory and the idea of l'Académie Française, and we also looked at how words have influence by how we react to words, both negatively through censorship and even further through banning books because of the potential ideas created in these books and shared through words. So, like Mary Poppins says, words have powers. There may not always be just one single word that can fix your problems, but words have the ability to change people's lives.
Well, that was supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, if I don't say so myself. So thank you to Ella. Our next performance is by senior team member and four-year team member, Taylor Gilmore. Taylor is from Pennsylvania and certainly had a more unique experience at SDSU while also participating on the rodeo team for part of her time, and is graduating. Gosh, I think she has like 10 different minors, but dairy science is her main area of study, as well as agricultural communication. So Taylor really has embraced this idea of speaking your passion, as you'll hear from her persuasion. I gave all of our students a choice of which performances they would like to do. Taylor qualified events and interpretive, compaging, limited prep, and public address. So she certainly have the ability and breadth to do all genres of categories. So please welcome Taylor and her persuasion.
After having her second son at age 24, April knew that she didn't want any more kids. So she talked to her doctor about tubal ligation, a surgical procedure for female sterilization that involves severing and tying the fallopian tubes, better known as getting one's tubes tied. Vice of May 7, 2019 exposed that despite being the default procedure for female sterilization, April's doctor would not approve her surgery because April wasn't married and her future husband might want kids one day. April is not alone. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists clarifies in 2019, as reproductive rights for women narrow, becoming voluntarily sterilized has become nearly impossible. Yet another iteration of how a historically patriarchal system exerts control over female bodies. And this is not just a straight woman's issue. It is a blatant attack on how anyone can choose to define a family. We must increase accessibility to tubal ligation. Doing so increases reproductive freedom for us all. Today, we will examine the causes, harm, and solutions surrounding tubal ligation and accessibility. Because while the rest of the world is focused on abortion, the continued oppression on tubal ligation is the silent war on choice that no one is talking about. At age 27, Lauren knew that motherhood wasn't for her. So she was shocked when she asked to be sterilized and her doctor laughed in her face and told her that she owed her husband a child. Lauren's experience is symptomatic of two causes: inequitable policies and physician fear of patient regret. First, sterilization policies are inequitable. In the 1920s, state-level courts allowed for the forced sterilization of individuals. Among those sterilized were the disabled, the poor, and those in minorities. To avoid similar atrocities in the modern day, the Affordable Care Act has overcorrected by mandating that women must be 21 before requesting to be sterilized and must endure a 30-day waiting period between approval and surgery. This is to prevent from coerced sterilizations after other procedures. However, there is no identical practice for men who can receive a vasectomy at age 18 with no waiting. This puts female choices at the back burner and allows men to skip the line entirely in pursuing reproductive autonomy. Second, physician fear. The Oxford Journal of Human Reproduction in 2019 revealed that 70% of physicians would attempt to dissuade a patient from tubal ligation. The reason? Physician fear of patient regret, a phenomenon isolated to tubal ligation and virtually no other procedure. Teen Vogue of April 13, 2019 furthers that physicians cite a 1999 study as evidence for rejecting women's requests to be sterilized. The study revealed that women have a 20% probability of regret towards the procedure. However, using this outdated data is irresponsible, contends physician Wendy K. Leung of Yale Medical School, as it neglects the fact that the highest majority of regret was amongst those who already had children, and that the majority of women who were sterilized were happy with their decision. Researcher Sarah Davis of Iowa State University concludes on August 18, 2019, that the medical community views voluntary sterilization as a moral failing, that not wanting children is a regrettable act. By not wanting to participate in these perceived immoral actions, physicians are denying women their exercise of their right of choice. Between inequitable policies and physician fear, women are losing their most powerful asset: their right to choose. At age 21, armed with hours of research and private insurance, I talked to my doctor about getting my tubes tied. She laughed, said I was too young and that I just hadn't found Mr. Right yet, and he would change my views on motherhood. My experience exemplifies the harm of tubal ligation and accessibility, systemic distrust of women, Inequitable policies and physician fear allow the medical community to perpetuate an environment in which women are not deemed worthy or trustworthy of making their own decisions. This distrust manifests itself in two ways in the conversation surrounding tubal ligation. First, hypothetical questioning. The previously cited Vice article explains that when physicians attempt to dissuade a patient from tubal ligation, they do so using hypothetical questions based around what a future male partner would want. What if your husband died? What if you meet someone else? Would your future husband be all right with this? This practice negates the real life choices of women for those of a hypothetical male spouse and communicates that a woman is not able to responsibly make a decision on her own. Second, the only path that leads to tubal ligation is one that supports a male spouse. The CDC of 2019 revealed that in heterosexual relationships where both partners have agreed to not be parents, the responsibility of sterilization is put primarily on the woman to preserve her male partner's masculinity. This communicates to women that they are immoral if they choose independently to be sterilized. But if it comes at the expense of preserving their male partner's fragile masculinity, then it is perfectly acceptable. Combined, these two standards create arbitrary benchmarks for women to meet to have full authority over their body. No woman should be told that she is too young, too single, or too childless to make an effective decision about her future. While researching this topic, I found tons of cringeworthy internet comments. One commenter claimed that he was disappointed to see women pursuing reproductive autonomy because it was the nation's wombs going to waste. My womb does not belong to the nation, and neither does anyone else's. We must increase access to tubal ligations. Here's how we can help. The first instinctual solution for a problem like this is policy. And yes, in future iterations of healthcare policy, there must be equitability by making the standard age for sterilization 18 for everyone and removing the 30-day waiting period. However, these needs ride non-primarily on the turbulent waters of the American healthcare system. There are two personal lifeboats we can offer women now. First, sharing personal narratives. If you or someone you know has personally been impacted by tubal ligation inaccessibility, please know that your voice matters and deserves to be heard. Post about your experience online using the hashtag #IWantMyTubesTied. Doing so not only breaks the silence surrounding tubal ligation, but can connect you to others who understand your experience and are able to empathize. Second, and men, this is where you too can become helpful allies. We must support organizations that currently do help women get the best reproductive care. The most prominent of these is Planned Parenthood. Sadly, Vox of August 10th, 2019 reveals that Planned Parenthood has lost its federal Title X funding due to advocating for its patients' rights. Now more than ever, we must support Planned Parenthood. Please, share their social media pages and go on their website to see about making a monetary donation. Every penny helps to preserve the rights of women. By sharing our personal narratives and supporting organizations like Planned Parenthood, we can help women take back their bodily autonomy from a patriarchy that has been anything but fatherly. Today, we examine the causes, harm, and solutions surrounding tubal ligation and accessibility. Abortion is not the only issue at the forefront of women's reproductive health care, and it is on us to continue the conversation through persistent advocacy of women's right to choose.
Another note about Taylor is that this year we were able to participate in an online national speech experience put on by the National Speech Championship, and Taylor was an exhibition finalist in impromptu speaking. So thank you, Taylor, for sharing your passion with all of us. Our next performance is yet another impromptu speaker. This is our final impromptu speech in our showcase. We had 3 impromptus and 3 prepared events we wanted to share with all of you for our virtual showcase, and that's by Nolan Bowers. Nolan is a third-year team member, and he has kind of started to adapt his own style of impromptu speaking, and it's really exciting. You'll see across the 3 different impromptus you saw, everyone has a slightly different approach. And it's really awesome when you can find your own way to create an impromptu speech. Nolan was also an exhibition finalist in impromptu speaking in that National Speech Championship online experience. So welcome, Nolan Bowers.
In 1945, the world got a good view on what concentration camp was really like through Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. This book focused on two main things. One, life in a concentration camp, and two, his new psychotherapy, which was related on that. Now, Viktor Frankl's psychotherapy really focused on one thing that he learned from concentration camps, that fate decides our world. He understood that fate decided the world for him and that he had to live his life through fate's point of view. Because he couldn't make his decisions to really go against fate, he had to follow through it and follow with the flow of what it wanted him to live like. This idea of going with the flow is completely clearly seen in today's quotation by Dominic Riccatello. What Riccatello is saying here is, quote, relationships are meant to be based upon example. If you go with the flow, all will come, end quote. Riccatello is blatantly saying that if we go with the flow, everything will come to us, because how important going with the flow is. We understand this quotation through by going with the flow. It allows us to become successful. We will understand this in 3 points. 1, relating it to looking at a philosophical lens. Secondly, relating that philosophical lens to the quotation itself. And finally, looking at the implications that this allows us to see. So first, looking at this philosophical lens, we will be looking at Taoism. Taoism is an ancient Eastern philosophy that focuses on one thing, the Tao, which is described as the way. This way is basically the fate of the world, understanding that things will happen and we must go with the flow in order to keep going. Go with the way. The way is really focused on being the flow. Taoism is mostly defined as being like a river with many rocks in it. You must become with the river in order to flow past these rocks, not to fight against them, but to continue to flow your way around these rocks and to understand the problems that are in your path, but continue past them. Now, by relating this to the quotation, we can look at Taoism itself. The river philosophy, and by flowing past these rocks, can be seen with this quotation of relationships. We see with relationships in this quote, it states that we shouldn't be basing it on examples, because people are different. By not relating to another person who is different, you can instead go with the flow of where you are right now, and through these rocks in the river, understand the person more, and continue to flow through the river. Because you are going with the flow of the relationship and not relating to somebody completely different, you are able to get more knowledge of the person who you are with and are continuing to gain success by continuing down the river. This flow allows us our success, and it is clearly seen in this quotation that Taoism is the best way to do that, by understanding that issues may come up, but you will move past them and will become successful in that relationship. Now, by understanding with Taoism and relating it to this quote, we get ourselves implications of Taoism relating to our modern world. We can first look at how Taoism allows our success through businesses, and secondly, the success of our individual lives. So first, looking at the success of businesses, we can look no farther than this tournament itself. Now, this tournament had many issues. Like the coronavirus, it can't be set face-to-face anymore. But it allows us to do this, where I'm sitting in my sister's room talking to my phone in order to have this tournament go on. We saw the coronavirus, and this tournament is going with the flow as a solution. We understand that it is an issue, and we are moving past it by making a different kind of tournament, this online experience. It allows us to continue our success of this tournament itself, showing its success by going with the flow. Now, secondly, we can look towards our success through individual lives with Diogenes. Diogenes was a man in ancient Greece who looked at his world around him and realized that he should just go with the flow and live the life that he really just kind of wants to live. By just simply vibing, Diogenes didn't own anything. He realized that if he really wanted to just go with the flow, he didn't need to own anything. So instead, he just lived in a marketplace, slept in a barrel, and just peed wherever he wanted to. By just doing what the actions that he simply could do, he allowed himself to be successful and extremely happy. Diogenes is best known by being the happiest man in Greece. By not having anything holding him down, and by simply going with the flow, he allowed himself to continue to be successful through happiness, because he didn't have anything tying him down, and continued to flow. So, by understanding the success of businesses and the success of our own individual lives, these are the implications that we see in relating to today's quotation and how important it is for us to use it in our daily lives. So by going back to today's quotation by Dominic Riccatello, who stated, "Relationships aren't meant to be based on example. If you go with the flow, all will come." Riccatello is clearly stating here that by going with the flow allows ourselves for success. We looked at this through a philosophical lens of Taoism, next related it to the quotation itself, and finally looked at implications. Viktor Frankl was extremely correct on understanding that fate takes its way, and that we must simply go with the flow.
Certainly sentiment that we all can relate to by needing to go with the flow and not having an example to share with all of us at this time. Our final performance of our virtual showcase they were also exhibition finalists in this event in duo at that National Speech Championship online experience. It's a duo partnership between senior team member Cameron Schroeder and second year member Jillian DeBoer. They said to me during our work week at the beginning of the school year, they said, "Andrea, we'd love to do a duo, but we haven't really got any ideas." And I said, I might have something for you. I just read this short story. I think it could be really cool. And they read the short story, they loved it, and it was a message that really resonated with them. And they did the rest, right? They did the hard work of converting a short story in prose format and putting it into a more dialogic, dramatic script format. So they worked very hard on this, and I think the end result is really beautiful and layered and dynamic. So Cameron and Jillian and their duo, thanks for continuing to watch.
Tabitha walks and thinks of shoes. She has been thinking about shoes for a very long time. The length of 3.5 pairs to be precise, though it's hard to reckon in iron. She must move forward or the shoes will never be worn down, and the shoes must be worn down.
Amira makes an art of stillness. She sits atop a glass hill perfectly suited to her so long as she does not move. She is sometimes hungry, but the magic looks after that. She is often tired and the magic encourages sleep. So long as she is still, so long as she keeps her glass seat atop her glass hill. Clamoring around the bottom of her hill are knights and princes who have fallen madly in love with her. They scream curses at her. That cunt! That witch! That glass whore on a glass hill! Her heart skips a beat when she hears something scraping beneath her. Because someone is climbing the glass hill. And no one is supposed to be able to reach her.
Snow White, poisoned by her stepmother.
Cinderella, tormented by her stepmother and sisters.
Ariel, literally had her voice taken away by her aunt.
These are common stories in today's society that spread the message, women do not support other women.
Despite this common theme, Pertwasia Tamalamara finds in her research on female friendships that female friendships are empowering and leave women with feelings of collectivity, support, and individuality.
It's time to communicate the message of women as allies and not enemies.
Seasons of Glass and Iron by Mal El Motar. My name's Amira. Have you come to marry me?
No? Do I have to?
No. Only that's why people try to climb the hill, so I thought that's what you...
Oh, no, I'm just passing through here, so...
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Tabitha! Why are you up here?
By accident.
Look, I have to wear down these shoes. They're iron. I have a notion that the straighter the surface, the faster they'll wear down, so your magic glass hill here. Didn't know there was anyone on top, though. I waited for those men at the bottom to leave. They seem like a nasty lot.
They leave as soon as the nights turn colder. You're more than welcome to stay and scrape your shoes against the glass.
Have they placed you up here?
No. I chose this. Why do you walk in iron shoes? Tabitha, why did you give me your cloak? Take it back.
Well, your lips were turning blue, Amira, and you couldn't move, so
It's all right, Tabitha. The hill or the apples. I'm not sure they keep me warm enough. Maybe it's like your feet. They look broken, but you can still walk on them.
Well, they feel broken. Although, less and less lately.
I'd like to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a rich king who had no sons and whose only daughter was too beautiful. She was so beautiful, men could not stop themselves from reaching out to touch her. The king took pity on these men and drew his daughter aside, saying,
Daughter, only a husband can break this spell over you. You must be married before one of my guards can't but help himself to your virtue.
The king's daughter was afraid and said, Suppose you sent me away.
No, for how could I keep my eye on you?
The king's daughter, who did not want a husband, said, Suppose you chose a neighboring prince for me.
Impossible, for you are my only daughter, and how could I favor one neighbor over the other?
Suppose you place me atop a glass hill where none could reach me and say only the man who can ride up the side can claim me as his wife.
Well, now that is an impossible task.
But then you can keep your kingdom whole and your eye on me and men safe from me. It was done, just as she said and by her will. If she's not gone, she lives there still.
That is absurd, Amira. I promise if your hair were straw or your skin dull as dishwater, bad men, would still do this to you. You said this was a choice. What manner of choice is that? You're just...
On the hill, I want for nothing. I need not for food or drink or shelter. No one can touch me. That's all I've ever wanted, for no one to be able to touch me. So as long as I sit here and eat my apples and do not move, I have everything I want.
Mine are not the only iron shoes in this world. Let me tell you a story about iron shoes. Once upon a time, a woman fell in love with a bear. They were wed, and at night the bear put on a man's shape to share their bed. And at first he was gentle and kind, but in time he began to change. He accused her of longing for a bear that was a man by day and night, and it was hard for the woman to endure, but who can say they love a bear entirely without pain? In the 7th year of their marriage, the woman begged her husband to let her go see her family, and he consented on the condition that she not be alone with her mother. For surely her mother would poison her against him, but her mother saw her marks. Burn his bare skin, she said. Perhaps he longs to be a man by day and night, but is forbidden to say so. When the woman returned, she picked up her husband's bare skin, tossed it in the fire. But the skin did not burn. It began to scream. He had only wanted to free him from his curse. He picked up his bare skin, tossed it over her shoulders, and threw a bag of iron shoes at her feet.
The only way to make me a man by day and night is to wear 7 pairs of iron shoes!
One for each year of their marriage.
Tabitha, I knew marriage was monstrous, but I never imagined that.
It wasn't all that bad. And I broke my promise. This, Amira, this is monstrous. To keep you from moving or speak.
Your husband wanted to keep you from speaking to your mother.
And look what happened when I did. It was a test of loyalty and I failed.
Every day feels like a test to me. Will I move from this hill or not? Will I throw an apple down to a man when I know I shouldn't? Every day I don't is a day I pass.
You don't love this hill, Amira.
I love you. I love you. And I don't understand how someone who loves you would want to hurt you.
So, I had a thought.
Oh?
To take you away from here. Can I do that?
Where would we go?
Well, my shoes can travel over anything, so
I don't want to go if the price is your pain.
I don't think I can walk without them.
You can lean on me. Where should we go?
Away.
Well, thank you all for tuning in and streaming our virtual showcase. SDSU's speech and debate team has been a part of our university nearly since the beginning in some form or iteration. And one of the things we spend a great deal of time is talking about our legacy and how we can continue to evolve that. While, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is not our ideal way that we would showcase our art and our passions with you, we're always happy to have ways to evolve what we get to do in this art of persuasion, beautiful and just, which happens to be the motto of our honorary Pi Kappa Delta. And this year we are celebrating 100 years of being a chapter of Pi Kappa Delta. We're the South Dakota Delta chapter. And we are planning a big celebration for fall 2020. And we hope that we will be able to celebrate with all of you in person. Thank you to the friends of the students who have tuned in. Thank you to the families and parents and significant others for your support in all sorts of ways to make what we do possible and to make what our students on our team can do possible. We know it requires a big support system, and we know it takes time away from you all in order for us to get to do what we do. So thank you to our administration and the School of Communication and Journalism for their unending support of our art, of our persuasion, beautiful and just, and the opportunities to continue to speak our passions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we hope to connect with you live and in real life very soon. All the best.